When we see children go through something difficult, our instinct is often to offer a reassuring cliché. Kids are resilient. They bounce back. But assuming a child can simply walk off trauma ignores the reality of the invisible weight they carry. Children certainly possess a remarkable capacity for strength. However, beneath that exterior, their nervous systems are still very much under construction. Because their brain architecture is actively forming, they do not yet have the internal mechanisms required to process complex, heavy emotions on their own. The biological tools for independent emotional regulation simply aren't fully built yet. When adults mistake that natural durability for an ability to heal unassisted, we inadvertently step back right when they need us most. Leaving a developing mind to untangle trauma by itself creates deep, lasting psychological scars. The standard response to a child in distress usually involves a referral, some paperwork, and a spot on a counselor's waitlist. Weeks can pass between the moment a student asks for help and the day they actually speak to a professional. During those weeks, that child goes to class, sits in the cafeteria, and tries to sleep, all while holding a crisis entirely inside. Every passing day forces their nervous system to remain in an exhausting state of high alert. Healing from these events is highly achievable, but the data shows that the absolute determining factor for a successful recovery is the speed at which therapy begins. The gap of time between an event occurring and treatment starting is exactly where long-term harm takes root. For a growing brain, immediate treatment is a biological necessity. The stakes get even higher when an entire school experiences a critical incident, like a sudden loss, an act of violence, or a lockdown. Crisis response teams suddenly have hundreds of students in distress all at once. This graph maps psychological intervention effectiveness following a crisis. Notice this massive peak, the 72-hour window. Intervening during these first 3 days provides immediate emotional triage, cooling the child's nervous system before acute shock permanently wires into their developing brain. For schools managing these events, there is zero time to waste. Administrators and response teams need to deploy screening tools straight to families the very same day, identifying which kids need urgent care within that 72-hour timeframe. Because a biological clock starts ticking the moment a crisis happens, the traditional approach of waiting to see if a student's behavior changes completely ignores the science of trauma. To solve this timing problem, K-12 districts across Georgia are deploying MentalSpace School. This is a dedicated, school-specific mental health infrastructure designed to close the access gap. MentalSpace eliminates the old waitlist model entirely. By assigning dedicated teams of culturally competent therapists to individual schools, they surge same-day tele-therapy capacity the moment a student or a campus needs it. The entire process starts directly at home. Families complete a free 3-minute online screening that immediately assesses the child's specific needs and starts the conversation with a licensed professional. This flowchart illustrates how the system cuts through traditional red tape. Students seamlessly filter through the network because care is covered by major commercial insurances and carries a $0 cost threshold for Medicaid. It also ensures schools hit their mandated HB 268 compliance deadlines automatically. This acts as essential school infrastructure, guaranteeing that any student can find a safe, guided space to exhale on the exact day they need it most. When schools prioritize this kind of immediate, same-day intervention, the outcomes clearly demonstrate what happens when we stop making kids wait. Looking at this bar chart tracking student performance, we see engagement jump up, with schools reporting an 89% improvement in attendance. The psychological metrics are even clearer. Students show a massive 92% reduction in anxiety symptoms, allowing them to focus on learning. And this care model stabilizes the community, securing an 85% family satisfaction rate. These are hard metrics proving that acting immediately stops a crisis in its tracks and redirects a growing child's entire trajectory toward recovery. Which brings us back to the idea of resilience. Being resilient does not mean a child should have to endure deep emotional pain entirely unassisted. True resilience requires a secure, structured environment where a child can process what they have experienced. MentalSpace School provides that exact environment on the very day the burden gets too heavy. Because at the end of the day, we must remember that no family ever carries a heavy child alone. Parents and caregivers can start the conversation right now by taking a free 3-minute screening at chctherapy.com/mentalhealthtests. School administrators can deploy this exact telehealth capacity in their district by visiting MentalSpaceSchool.com. Kids are strong, and kids are growing. Empowering them to heal begins the moment we stop expecting them to bounce back by themselves and start providing the immediate care they deserve.